The massive crystal chamber buzzed with tension as delegates from across the galaxy took their seats. The Galactic Council station hung in the darkness of space, orbiting the bright star Vega like a jewel. Inside, representatives from dozens of species gathered around the circular meeting hall, their voices creating a symphony of different languages and sounds. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat quietly in the human section, her hands folded on the smooth table. She wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's symbol on her shoulder. Around her, the other human diplomats looked small compared to their alien neighbors. The thorax delegates clicked their mandibles nervously. The gas-breathing Etherians floated in their containment suits, and across the room the Krextar delegation dominated their section with their massive red-scaled bodies. General Vashitok Krextar stood 9 feet tall, his crimson scales marked with deep scars from countless battles. His yellow eyes swept the room like a predator watching prey. When he moved, his claws clicked against the floor and other delegates instinctively leaned away from him. His warriors flanked him on both sides, each one carrying weapons that the council allowed for ceremonial purposes. The meeting had dragged on for hours. Trade agreements, territory disputes, mining rights, the usual business of galactic politics. Sarah had presented humanity's request simply and politely. They wanted permission to mine asteroids in the Kepler Belt, a stretch of space that bordered both human and Krextar territory. The rocks were rich in rare metals that Earth needed for their growing space colonies. The asteroid field has been unclaimed for centuries, Sarah had explained to the council. Our surveys show enough materials to supply both our civilizations. For decades, we propose a joint mining operation that benefits everyone. The other delegates murmured approval. Joint operations were common in the galaxy. It made sense to share resources and reduce conflicts. But General Vashitok had remained silent, his tail lashing behind him like an angry cat. When Sarah finished her presentation, she waited for questions. The thorax delegate asked about environmental protections. The Etherian representative wanted details about profit sharing. Standard diplomatic discussion. Then Vashtok stood up. The room fell silent. When a Krextar general rose to speak, everyone listened. His species had conquered 3 star systems through pure military might. Their empire stretched across dozens of worlds, all taken by force. They respected only strength and viewed diplomacy as weakness. Joint operations, Vashitok said, his voice deep and rough like grinding stone. Profit sharing, environmental protections. He laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the crystal walls. Listen to these humans speak their pretty words. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. She had dealt with hostile aliens before, but something in Vashitok's tone warned her this would be different. You humans are all the same, the general continued, pacing in front of his delegation. You fly around the galaxy in your tiny ships asking politely for scraps. You smile and bow and make your careful speeches. But do you know what I see when I look at you? He turned to face Sarah directly. His yellow eyes burned with contempt. Cowards. The word hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several delegates gasped. The thorax clicked nervously. Even the stoic Etherians seemed to shift in their suits. That is enough, the council chairman said, his blue skin darkening with anger. General Vashitok, you will show respect for all council members. But Vashitok ignored him. He stepped closer to the human section, his claws extended. Cowards, he repeated louder. That is what humans are. You speak of cooperation because you are too weak to take what you want. You ask for mining rights because you lack the strength to claim them. You hide behind pretty words because you know that real warriors would crush you in honest battle. Sarah stood up slowly. She was barely 5.5 feet tall, dwarfed by the alien general, but she met his gaze without flinching. General Vashitok, she said calmly, humanity believes that civilization advances through cooperation, not conquest. We have found that working together produces better results than fighting. Vashtok threw back his head and roared with laughter. His warriors joined in, their voices creating a terrifying chorus that filled the chamber. Working together, he shouted when the laughter died down. Listen to her. She proves my point perfectly. Humans are so weak that they cannot survive without begging others for help. Your entire species are nothing but scavengers, picking up scraps that real predators leave behind. The general began pacing again, warming to his subject. I have studied your pathetic military, human. Your fleet consists of exploration vessels and cargo ships. You have no real warships, no battle stations, no orbital defense platforms. Your soldiers carry weapons designed to wound, not kill. Even your worst criminals are kept alive in prisons instead of being executed like proper justice demands. Sarah's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady. We prefer to solve problems without violence, General. That does not make us weak. It makes you pray, Vashtok snarled. He turned to address the entire council. This is why humans should never be granted equal status in this body. They are not a warrior race. They have never conquered anything through strength. They have never proved themselves in honorable combat. They are parasites who want to feed off the strength of real civilizations. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several delegates shouted at Vashtok to sit down. Others demanded order. But the general continued his tirade, his voice rising above the chaos. I challenge any human to prove me wrong, he bellowed. Send your best warrior to face me, in single combat. Let us see if your species has even one member with true courage. But you will not, because you know I speak the truth. Humans are cowards who will run at the first sign of real danger. Sarah felt anger burning in her chest. Around her, the other human delegates looked pale and shaken. She knew that every word of this confrontation was being broadcast across human space. Billions of people on Earth and the colonies were watching their species be humiliated in front of the galaxy. The council chairman was shouting for order, but Vashtok was not finished. Look at them, he pointed at the human delegation. Now they sit quietly and take insults like beaten dogs. No warrior race would tolerate such dishonor. But humans? They will smile and ask to negotiate. They will offer compromises and beg for understanding. Because that is what cowards do when faced with superior strength. The general returned to his seat with a satisfied grunt. His warriors grinned at the humans with sharp-toothed smiles. Around the chamber, other delegates avoided looking at Sarah and her team. The chairman tried to restore order, but the damage was done. Several alien representatives were already whispering among themselves, glancing at the humans with new skepticism. Sarah realized that Vashtok had accomplished exactly what he wanted. He had not just insulted humanity, he had made them look weak in front of their allies. The meeting continued, but the atmosphere had changed. When the asteroid mining proposal came to a vote, it was defeated by a wide margin. The message was clear. The galaxy saw humans as Vashtok described them. Weak, helpless, unworthy of respect. As the session ended, Sarah gathered her papers with steady hands. But inside, her mind was already racing. She knew that this humiliation would not go unanswered. Humanity had joined the galactic community in peace, hoping to find friends among the stars. Instead, they had found predators who mistook kindness for weakness. That mistake would cost General Vashtok everything. The news reached Earth in less than 6 hours. Quantum communication arrays across human space crackled with outrage as the video of General Vashtok's insults spread from world to world. On Earth, crowds gathered in public squares to watch the broadcast on massive screens. In the Mars colonies, miners stopped their work to cluster around communication terminals. On the outer rim stations, families huddled around their personal displays with faces growing darker by the minute. Admiral Marcus Rivera stood in the command center of the United Terran Defense Force, watching the same footage for the 10th time. The gray-haired veteran had fought in humanity's last major conflict, the Titan War, 30 years ago. Since then, he had overseen the transformation of human military forces from weapons of war to tools of exploration and peacekeeping. Now, he wondered if that had been a mistake. Sir, his aide Captain Williams approached carefully. The President is on Secure Line 1. The Colonial Council is holding an emergency session, and we have over 2 million calls logged from volunteers wanting to fight the Krextar. Rivera nodded without looking away from the screen. On the display, General Vashtok was calling humans cowards for the 5th time. Each repetition made Rivera's jaw clench tighter. 2 million volunteers, he said quietly. How long since the broadcast? 4 hours, sir. The number is still climbing. The Admiral finally turned away from the screen. Around the command center, officers and technicians worked at their stations with unusual intensity. Everyone had seen the broadcast. Everyone was angry. "Get me a secure channel to Ambassador Chen," Rivera ordered. "And start pulling files on every human who has military experience. I want to know who we have available." Within an hour, Rivera was seated at a conference table with holographic projections of human leaders from across the galaxy. President Martinez appeared from her office on Earth. Colonial Governor Singh, connected from Alpha Centauri. Military, commanders, diplomatic officials, and civilian leaders filled the virtual room. "The question before us is simple," President Martinez began. "How do we respond to this insult?" "We should file a formal complaint with the Council," suggested Foreign Minister Chen, Sarah's superior. Vashtok's behavior was completely inappropriate for a diplomatic setting. Several voices immediately disagreed. "A complaint makes us look weak," Governor Singh argued. "It proves his point about humans running to others for protection." "Then what do you suggest?" Martinez asked. "Send the fleet to Krextar space? Start a war that could cost millions of lives?" Rivera had been quiet throughout the debate, but now he leaned forward. "There is another option," he said. "Vashatok challenged us to prove him wrong. He wants to see if humans have courage. I say we show him." The room fell silent. On the screens, dozens of faces stared at the Admiral. "You cannot be serious." "Foreign," Minister Chen said. "He is demanding single combat. One human against a trained Krextar warrior. It would be suicide." "Would it?" Rivera asked. "The General made this challenge in front of the entire galaxy. If we refuse, we prove his point about human cowardice. But if we accept and win, we prove him wrong about everything." President Martinez frowned. "Marcus, I understand the symbolism, but the risk of looking weak is greater than the risk of losing one fight," Rivera interrupted. "Ma'am, I have been studying the Krextar for years. They are strong and brutal, but they are also predictable. They fight with honor codes and rigid tactics. A smart human fighter could exploit those weaknesses." Governor Singh leaned forward. "Admiral, are you volunteering?" Rivera smiled grimly. "I am 68 years old and have not seen combat in 3 decades. But I am not the only human with military experience." Over the next 12 hours, Rivera and his staff reviewed thousands of files. Active military personnel, veterans, security officers, even civilian fighters with martial arts backgrounds. They needed someone with the right combination of skills, experience, and psychological profile. The choice when it came surprised everyone. Captain Elena Vasquez was technically a civilian. She had left the military 5 years ago after serving in the Outer Rim security forces. Now she worked as an asteroid miner in the belt, piloting heavy equipment and managing small teams of workers. Her military record showed extensive special operations training, but nothing that seemed exceptional. What caught Rivera's attention was her psychological evaluation from the military. The report described her as having unusual resistance to stress and inability to consider surrender as an option. During her service, she had been involved in several incidents where she had continued fighting despite overwhelming odds. Rivera called her personally. "Captain Vasquez, this is Admiral Rivera. I have a proposition for you." Elena was floating in zero gravity inside her mining ship when the call came through. She had been watching the news broadcasts like everyone else, growing angrier by the hour. When the Admiral explained what he wanted, she was quiet for a long moment. "Sir, are you asking me to fight the Krextar General?" "I am asking if you would be willing to represent humanity in single combat, to prove that we are not the cowards he claims we are." Elena looked out the viewport of her ship at the asteroids spinning slowly in space. She had been born on Earth, raised in the colonies, and spent her adult life protecting human settlements on the frontier. She had seen what happened to people who were viewed as weak. Pirates attacked them. Hostile aliens invaded their worlds. Stronger civilizations took what they wanted and gave nothing back. "Admiral," she said finally, "what are the rules of this fight?" Rivera's voice carried a smile. The Krextar believe in honorable combat. It will be single combat, no weapons except what each fighter brings, and it continues until one fighter yields or cannot continue. And if I lose? Humanity looks weak in front of the galaxy. Our colonies become targets. Our people become victims. Elena closed her eyes. She thought about her parents on Mars, her brother's family on Titan, the thousands of miners and settlers who depended on Earth's protection. And if I win? We prove that humans are not cowards. We earn respect. We show the galaxy that we choose peace not from weakness, but from strength. The decision took Elena less than a second. I accept. The response was broadcast 12 hours later. Admiral Rivera appeared on screens across human space and beyond, wearing his formal uniform with all his decorations. Behind him stood Elena in simple military fatigues, calm and composed. General Vashtok of the Krextar Empire has challenged humanity to prove our courage, Rivera began. He claims that humans are cowards who lack the strength to defend ourselves. We accept his challenge. The Admiral gestured to Elena. Captain Elena Vasquez will represent humanity in single combat against General Vashtok or any champion he chooses. The fight will be conducted according to Krextar honor codes, with no quarter asked or given. Rivera looked directly into the camera. General, you called us cowards. You said we would run from a real fight. You were wrong. Captain Vasquez will meet you or your champion on any world you choose, at any time you name. We will prove that humanity's preference for peace comes from choice, not fear. The broadcast ended with Elena speaking briefly. I do not fight for glory or conquest. I fight to show the galaxy that humans protect what we value. General Vashtok thinks we are weak because we choose cooperation over conflict. He will learn that we are capable of both. The galaxy's reaction was immediate and intense. On Krextar worlds, warriors roared with laughter at the audacity of humans, sending a single fighter against their greatest general. Other alien species watched with fascination, wondering if humanity was brave or simply insane. But in human space, the response was different. Elena became a symbol overnight. Her image appeared on walls and screens across dozens of worlds. Children wore clothing with her name. Adults spoke of her with pride and hope. General Vashtok accepted the challenge within hours. The location would be his homeworld. The time would be in 1 week. He would face this human champion personally to demonstrate Krextar superiority, once and for all. As Elena prepared to leave for Krextar space, Admiral Rivera gave her one final piece of advice. Remember, Captain, you are not just fighting for yourself. You carry the hopes of every human alive. But more than that, you carry proof that we are not what our enemies think we are. Elena nodded. I understand, sir. I will not disappoint you. I know you will not, because that is not who humans are. The Krextar homeworld burned red under its twin suns. From orbit, Elena could see the massive arena complex that had been built specifically for this fight. It stretched for miles across the desert, a coliseum so large that it could hold 10 million spectators. Around it, temporary cities had sprouted as beings from across the galaxy arrived to witness what most expected would be humanity's final humiliation. Elena's transport ship landed at the designated coordinates, a small platform. At the edge of the arena, she was alone except for the pilot, a nervous young man who kept glancing at her as if she might disappear. Captain, he said as she gathered her gear. Are you sure about this? Elena shouldered her pack and checked her equipment one more time. Standard human military gear, armor vest, helmet, basic weapons, medical supplies. Nothing fancy, nothing that would give her an unfair advantage by Krextar standards. I am sure, she told the pilot. Go home. Tell them I was ready. She stepped off the ship into the crushing heat of the Krextar desert. The gravity was heavier than Earth normal, making each step require extra effort. The air tasted of sulfur and metal. In the distance, the arena rose like a mountain, its walls carved with images of Krextar victories. A delegation of Krextar warriors waited for her. They stood 8 feet tall in ceremonial armor, their red scales gleaming in the sunlight. The leader stepped forward and spoke in accented English. "Human warrior, I am Commander Thekvar. I will escort you to the arena." Elena nodded. "I am ready." The walk to the arena took an hour. Along the way, Elena observed everything she could about her escorts. How they moved, how they carried their weapons, how they reacted to her presence. The Krextar were clearly strong and experienced fighters, but she noticed they moved in predictable patterns. Their formation never changed. Their leader always stayed in the same position relative to the others. The arena interior was even more impressive than the outside view had suggested. Millions of Krextar filled the stands, their voices creating a thunderous roar that shook the ground. Floating cameras captured every angle, broadcasting the event to billions of viewers across the galaxy. At the center of it all was the fighting pit, a circular space the size of several football fields, surrounded by walls 30 feet high. General Vashitok waited for her in the center of the pit. He looked even more terrifying in person than he had on the video broadcasts. His scarred hide spoke of countless battles. His claws were filed to razor points. His yellow eyes burned with predatory hunger as he watched Elena descend into the arena. But Elena was not looking at Vashitok. She was studying the arena itself. The walls were smooth stone, offering few handholds. The floor was sand over solid rock. Weapons racks stood at regular intervals around the perimeter, traditional Krextar blades and clubs available for any fighter to use. The pit had been designed for gladiatorial combat, meant to showcase strength and brutality. "So," Vashitok called out as Elena approached, "the coward humans have sent their champion." Elena stopped 20 feet away from the general. Up close, he was even more massive than she had expected. His reach would be twice hers. His strength would be overwhelming. In a direct confrontation, she would lose in seconds. Good thing she had no intention of fighting directly. "I am here," she said simply. Vashitok laughed. "Look at her," he shouted to the crowd. "This tiny creature is humanity's greatest warrior. This is what they send to prove their courage." The crowd roared with laughter and derision. Elena ignored them. She was busy counting exits, measuring distances, calculating angles. "The rules are simple. Human," Vashitok announced. "We fight until one of us yields or dies. You may use any weapons from the racks. You may ask for mercy at any time. But no, that I will grant none." Elena nodded. "I understand. When do we begin?" "Now!" Vashitok lunged forward with shocking speed for something so large. His claws swept toward Elena's throat in a killing blow that would have ended the fight instantly. But Elena was not there. She had rolled left the moment Vashitok moved, coming up near one of the weapon racks. Her hand closed around a Krextar war club, a weighted metal rod designed for crushing bones. But instead of wielding it as a weapon, she hurled it at Vashitok's feet. The general stumbled slightly, more from surprise than the impact. But that moment of imbalance was what Elena needed. She was already moving, grabbing a handful of sand from the arena floor and flinging it at his eyes. Vashitok roared in anger and swung blindly. His claws raked across Elena's ribs, tearing through her armor and drawing blood. But she had expected that. As he struck, she grabbed his extended arm and used his own momentum to throw him forward into the arena wall. The crowd fell silent. Their general had just been thrown by a creature half his size. Vashitok recovered quickly, spinning around with his claws extended. But Elena was ready. She had spent the few seconds of his confusion grabbing a coil of rope from the equipment stores. As he charged again, she threw it around his feet and pulled. The mighty Krextar general crashed face first into the sand. The silence in the arena was now complete. Millions of spectators watched in shock as their greatest warrior struggled to regain his footing while a tiny human danced around him like an annoying insect. But Elena was not done. As Vashitok rose, she kicked sand into his face again, then grabbed a sword from the weapons rack. When he swung at her, she ducked under his arm and sliced at his hamstring, not deep enough to cripple, but enough to slow him down. The general spun around, his yellow eyes now blazing with rage instead of confidence. "Stand still and fight like a warrior," he bellowed. "No," Elena replied calmly and threw another handful of sand at him. For the next 20 minutes, Elena turned the arena into her personal playground. She used every trick she had learned in Special Forces training and 5 years of asteroid mining. When Vashtok charged, she led him into the wall. When he tried to corner her, she used the weapon racks as obstacles. When he grabbed for her, she was already gone. More importantly, she was learning. Each attack taught her more about how he moved, how he thought, how he reacted to different situations. The Krextar fought with overwhelming force and direct aggression. They expected their enemies to meet them strength against strength. Elena gave him something completely different. By the time the fight reached its climax, both combatants were exhausted and bloody. Elena had accumulated a collection of cuts and bruises that would have hospitalized a normal person. But she was still moving, still thinking, still fighting. Vashtok, on the other hand, was beginning to slow down. His massive strength was working against him in the arena heat. His predictable attacks were being countered before he could complete them. And worst of all, his confidence was shattered. The end came suddenly. Vashtok made one final desperate lunge, putting all his remaining strength into a killing blow. Elena sidestepped at the last second and swept his legs. As the general fell, she wrapped the rope around his neck and pulled tight. For a moment, the most feared warrior in Krextar space was helpless, choking in the dirt while a human half, his size, held his life in her hands. "Yield," Elena said quietly. The arena held its breath. General Vashtok, pride of the Krextar Empire, lay defeated in the sand. Elena could have killed him. By Krextar law, she had the right. Instead, she released the rope and stepped back. "Yield," she repeated. Vashtok struggled to his knees, gasping for air. His yellow eyes met Elena's brown ones. In them, she saw something that had not been there before. Respect. "I yield," he said hoarsely. The arena erupted, not in celebration, but in shock and confusion. Their greatest warrior had been defeated by a human who fought like no enemy they had ever faced. She had not relied on strength or size or traditional weapons. She had used intelligence, adaptability, and most importantly, an absolute refusal to give up. As Elena walked toward the arena, "Exit," Vashtok called after her. "Human," he said, struggling to stand. "What is your name?" Elena turned back. "Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Terran Defense Force." "I was wrong about your species," Vashtok admitted. "You are not cowards." Elena nodded. "No, General. We are not. We simply choose our battles carefully." As she left the arena, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. Humanity's champion had done the impossible. She had defeated the Krextar Empire's greatest warrior not through superior strength, but through superior thinking. The message was clear. Humans were not the weak scavengers their enemies believed them to be. They were something far more dangerous, survivors who could adapt to any challenge and overcome any opponent through intelligence, determination, and refusal to surrender. The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. General Vashtok sat in his command bunker, staring at replay footage of his defeat. The screen showed Elena dodging his attacks, using his own strength against him, turning what should have been a simple execution into an impossible victory. His officers stood around him in uncomfortable silence, waiting for orders that did not come. The humiliation burned worse than any physical wound he had ever received. Across the Krextar Empire, his defeat was being discussed in whispers. Some questioned his leadership. Others wondered if humans were more dangerous than anyone had realized. A few even suggested that perhaps the Empire should reconsider its hostile stance toward humanity. That last possibility made Vashtok's blood boil. "Commander Thekvar," he said without looking away from the screens. "Yes, General?" "How many warriors do we have available on the homeworld?" The commander checked his tablet. "Approximately 50,000, sir, plus support units, air assets, and mobile armor." Vashtok finally turned away from the screens. His yellow eyes burned with renewed fury. "The human defeated me through trickery and cowardice. She did not fight with honor. She used the arena against me, turned what should have been single combat into a game of hide-and-seek." The officers murmured agreement, They needed to believe that their general had been defeated by unfair tactics, not superior skill. But I agreed to single combat. Vashitok continued. The terms were that we fight until one yields or dies. The human won according to those rules. He stood up, his massive frame casting shadows across the room. However, there is nothing preventing me from issuing a new challenge. Commander Thekvar looked confused. Sir? The human proved she could defeat one Krextar warrior through tricks and running. Let us see how she performs against 100. Within hours, the challenge was broadcast across the galaxy. General Vashitok appeared on screens throughout human space, his scarred face set in grim determination. Captain Elena Vasquez, he began. You defeated me through cunning and unconventional tactics. I acknowledge your victory and grant you the respect due to a worthy opponent. However, single combat between champions is only one form of warfare. Behind him, rows of Krextar warriors stood at attention, their weapons gleaming in the harsh light. I offer you a new challenge. Face 100 of my finest warriors in the same arena. If you win, the Krextar Empire will acknowledge humanity as equals and will never again question your courage. If you lose, he smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth, then everyone will know that your victory over me was mere luck. The response from human space was immediate and angry. Admiral Rivera appeared on emergency broadcasts, denouncing the challenge as a violation of the original agreement. President Martinez filed formal complaints with the Galactic Council. Diplomatic protests flooded Krextar communication networks, but Elena's response was different. She was sitting in a medical facility on the Krextar homeworld, having her wounds treated, when the challenge came through. The alien doctors had been surprised by her physiology. Humans healed faster than expected, and her pain tolerance was beyond anything in their experience. Captain, Admiral Rivera's voice came through her communicator. Do not even consider accepting this challenge. It is clearly a trap designed to murder you after they failed to defeat you fairly. Elena was quiet for a long moment, thinking, Admiral, what does the rest of the galaxy think about this new challenge? They think Vashitok is a sore loser who cannot accept defeat. Most species are condemning his actions as dishonorable. And what do they think will happen if I accept? Rivera's voice became grim. They think you will die. Elena, even you cannot fight 100 trained warriors simultaneously. It is physically impossible. Elena looked out the window at the arena complex. Even from miles away, she could see construction vehicles working around the clock to modify the fighting pit. They were making it larger, adding obstacles and terrain features, preparing for a battle instead of a duel. Admiral, if I refuse this challenge, what happens? You come home as a hero. You have already proved humanity's courage. No one could blame you for refusing an obviously unfair fight. That is not what I asked. What happens to humanity's reputation if I refuse? Rivera was quiet for several seconds. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy with understanding. Some will say that we only fight when we have an advantage, that we are clever but not truly brave, that we won through luck rather than strength. And if I accept and lose, then you die as a hero, and humanity mourns a great champion. And if I accept and win, then, Rivera paused, then the galaxy will know that humanity is capable of miracles. Elena made her decision. Her acceptance was broadcast from the same medical facility where she was receiving treatment. She appeared on screen wearing a simple hospital gown, her arms and face covered with bandages, but her voice was steady and clear. General Vashitok, I accept your challenge. 100 warriors against one human. Same rules as before. Fight until one side yields or cannot continue. She looked directly into the camera. But I want to make something clear. This is not about proving human courage anymore. You already know we are not cowards. This is about showing the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity with overwhelming force. The battle was scheduled for the next day. Elena spent the time preparing. She studied footage of Krextar group tactics, memorized the layout of the modified arena, and planned her strategy. The doctors warned her that she was not fully healed from the previous fight. but she ignored them. Human physiology was tougher than most alien medical knowledge suggested. When the day arrived, the arena was even more crowded than before. Word of the challenge had spread throughout the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species had traveled to witness what many expected would be either humanity's greatest triumph or most tragic defeat. Elena entered the arena to complete silence. The crowd of Krextar spectators did not know how to react to her. She had defeated their greatest general, but now faced impossible odds. Some respected her courage. Others anticipated her destruction. 100 Krextar warriors waited in the center of the pit. They stood in perfect formation, weapons ready, faces set in grim determination. Each one was a veteran fighter, chosen from the Empire's elite units. Together they represented more military power than most species could field in an entire battalion. General Vashitok stood on a raised platform overlooking the arena. "Captain Vasquez," his voice boomed across the pit, "you have shown great courage in accepting this challenge. When you are ready to begin, signal me." Elena walked to the center of the arena. She was dressed in the same basic military gear as before, but this time she carried additional equipment, rope, tools, and several items that the Krextar did not recognize. She looked up at Vashtok and nodded. Begin. What followed was not a battle in any traditional sense. Elena did not charge the formation of warriors or attempt to fight them directly. Instead, she ran, but her running had purpose. She led the warriors around the arena in a complex pattern, using obstacles and terrain features to break up their formation. When they tried to surround her, she climbed walls and jumped between platforms. When they cornered her, she disappeared through passages and emerged somewhere else entirely. For the first hour, the crowd grew restless. This looked like cowardice, exactly what General Vashtok had originally accused humans of displaying. But slowly patterns began to emerge. Elena was not just running, she was separating the warriors into smaller groups. Every time the formation began to spread out, she would attack the weakest link, not to kill, but to disable. A warrior would fall with damaged knee. Another would be left unconscious from a precise blow to the head. Gradually, 100 became 90, then 80, then 70. More importantly, the remaining warriors were becoming tired, frustrated, and careless. They had trained to fight as a unit, but Elena's tactics made unit cohesion impossible. They were reduced to chasing one human around an arena, and they were losing. By the fourth hour, only 20 warriors remained standing. They were exhausted, demoralized, and beginning to understand that they were fighting an opponent who operated by completely different rules than any enemy they had ever faced. Elena, despite her injuries from the previous day and 4 hours of continuous combat, was still moving. She had taken more damage. Her clothing was shredded, her equipment was mostly destroyed or abandoned, and she was bleeding from dozens of wounds. But she was still thinking, still adapting, still refusing to quit. The end came when the remaining warriors made a final coordinated charge. Elena waited until they were committed to the attack, then triggered a trap she had been preparing for hours. A section of the arena floor collapsed, dropping half the warriors into a pit she had excavated using salvaged tools. The others found themselves tangled in ropes and nets that Elena had positioned during her earlier running. One by one, the last warriors fell or yielded. When the dust settled, Elena stood alone in the center of the arena, surrounded by 100 defeated Krextar fighters. The silence in the arena was deafening. General Vashtok stared down at the impossible scene. His finest warriors, an entire company of elite troops, had been defeated by a single human who should have been dead 10 times over. Elena woke up in a medical facility, her body wrapped in bandages and connected to several alien medical devices. Through the window, she could see the Krextar homeworld's twin suns setting over the desert. She had been unconscious for 2 days. Krextar medical officer noticed her awakening and approached cautiously. "Captain Vasquez, how do you feel?" Elena tested her limbs carefully. Everything hurt, but everything still worked. "I have been better. How long was I out? 47 hours. Your species has remarkable healing abilities. Most beings would have required weeks of treatment for your injuries. Elena sat up slowly. Where is General Vashtok? The general has been waiting to speak with you. He said to inform him immediately, when you awakened. Within an hour, Vashtok entered the medical facility. The proud Krextar general looked different now, older, more thoughtful, less arrogant. His yellow eyes regarded Elena with something that had not been there before. Genuine. Respect, Captain, he said formally. I owe you an apology. When I called humans cowards, I spoke from ignorance. You have shown me that courage takes many forms. Elena nodded. Apology accepted, General. Your warriors fought bravely. In different circumstances, they might have won. No, Vashtok said, firmly. I have studied the recordings of both battles. Your victory was not luck or circumstance. You won because you think differently than we do. You see possibilities where we see only direct confrontation. He sat down in a chair beside her bed, his massive frame making the furniture creak. I have a confession to make, Captain. These challenges were not just about proving human courage. They were political theater. Elena raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The Krextar Empire has enemies, Vashtok continued. Other species view us as too aggressive, too violent. Some have formed alliances against us. I thought that by humiliating humanity, the galaxy's newest members, I could demonstrate our strength and discourage potential threats. And now? Now I realize that I have made a terrible mistake. Not just in underestimating humans, but in the entire approach. Your species represents something that the galaxy has never seen before. Beings who prefer peace, but are capable of incredible violence when threatened. Elena was quiet for a moment, processing this information. General, what exactly are you telling me? Vashtok's expression grew grave. 3 days ago, while you were unconscious, I received intelligence reports that concern me greatly. Several alien species have been watching these fights with great interest. They are not impressed by Krextar's strength being defeated. They are terrified by human capabilities. He activated a holographic display showing star maps with colored markers. The Zelanti Consortium has mobilized their battle fleets. The Morphic Collective has placed their worlds under military lockdown. The Hive worlds are recalling their exploration ships to defensive positions. Elena stared at the display. They think humanity is a threat. They think humanity is the greatest threat the galaxy has ever seen. One human defeated our greatest general, then destroyed an entire company of elite warriors. The mathematical projections are terrifying. If humans can do this individually, what could you accomplish as a species united in warfare? Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with her injuries. General, are they planning to attack human space? Worse, they are planning to attack you here, now. Vashtok manipulated the display, showing ship movements converging on the Krextar homeworld. A coalition fleet is approaching this system. Their stated mission is to eliminate the human champion before she can return to her people and share what she has learned about combat. They believe that killing you will demonstrate human mortality and reduce the threat you represent. Elena struggled to stand up, her medical equipment beeping alarms. How long do we have? 6 hours, perhaps less. Get me a communication array. I need to contact the human fleet. Vashtok looked confused. Captain, there is no human fleet in this sector. Your transport ship left 2 days ago to carry news of your victory back to Earth. Elena stared at him. Then we have a problem. For the next hour, Elena tried every communication method available, attempting to reach human forces. But the nearest human ships were days away at best. The coalition fleet would arrive long before any rescue could be organized. Captain, Vashtok said as she finished her last unsuccessful communication attempt, I have ordered the planetary defense fleet to protect you, but we cannot stand against 6 different species working together. The odds are impossible, Elena finished. I know something about impossible odds, General. She stood up and began removing the medical equipment. I need my gear. Your equipment was destroyed in the arena. Then I need new equipment. Standard Krextar military issue will do. Vashtok stared at her. Captain, you cannot seriously be planning to fight an entire invasion fleet. Elena met his gaze steadily. General, I have spent the last week proving that humans do not surrender when faced with superior force. I am not going to start now. But as she prepared for what seemed like certain death, something unexpected happened. The communication array crackled to life with an incoming message. But the voice that came through was not alien. It was human, speaking English with a familiar accent. General Vashtok, this is Admiral Marcus Rivera of the United Terran Defense Force. We are requesting permission to enter your system. Elena and Vashtok stared at each other in shock. Admiral, Elena said into the communicator. How are you here? There were no human ships in this sector. Rivera's voice carried a smile. Captain, did you really think we would let you face the galaxy alone? The display screens around the medical facility suddenly lit up with new contacts. Ship after ship appeared on the sensors as they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. But these were not the small exploration vessels that the galaxy knew as the human fleet. These were warships, hundreds of them. The vessels that materialized around the Krextar homeworld were clearly human in design, but built for one purpose: combat. They moved with precision and coordination that spoke of extensive training and preparation. Their weapon systems powered up in perfect synchronization. Their formation spoke of tactical doctrines that no alien species had ever seen. Admiral, Elena said weakly, where did these ships come from? Did you think the human race would explore the galaxy without the means to protect our people? Rivera's voice was calm and professional. Captain, we have been building this fleet since the day we achieved faster-than-light travel. Every exploration ship that left human space was accompanied by warships hidden in the outer system. Every colony established has been supported by battle stations in the asteroid belts. On the tactical display, Elena could see the coalition fleet that had come to kill her. 6 different species, hundreds of ships, enough firepower to destroy entire worlds. But now they faced something they had not expected: a human battle fleet that outnumbered them 3-1. Admiral, Vashtok said into the communicator, this is General Vashtok of the Krextar Empire. Your captain has fought with great honor. She is under the protection of my government. Thank you, General, Rivera replied. But Captain Vasquez is under the protection of humanity, and we protect our own. The coalition fleet commander must have realized the situation had changed dramatically. His voice came across the emergency frequencies, demanding to know where the human warships had come from and threatening to destroy them for interfering. Rivera's response was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every ship in the system and every listening post across the galaxy heard his words clearly. You came here to kill one human because you feared what she represented. You were right to be afraid, but for the wrong reasons. The human fleet began moving into attack formation with mechanical precision. Captain Elena Vasquez did not defeat your greatest warriors through superior strength or advanced technology. She won because she represents what humanity truly is: a species that adapts, endures, and finds ways to survive against impossible odds. Elena watched the tactical display as human ships surrounded the coalition fleet. The aliens had come expecting to face a helpless victim. Instead, they found themselves trapped by a force they had never imagined existed. You called us cowards because we prefer peace, Rivera continued. You mistook our desire for cooperation as weakness, but humanity's choice of peace over war is not born from inability to fight. It is born from being very, very good at it. The coalition fleet was attempting to withdraw, but human ships had already blocked every escape route. The trap was perfect and absolute. Captain Vasquez volunteered to face your champion alone, not because she was expendable, but because she knew that humanity would never abandon her. Every human in space heard General Vashtok's insults. Every human saw our champion face impossible odds with courage and determination. Rivera's voice grew cold and hard. And every human swore that anyone who threatened her would answer to all of us. The largest coalition ship, a massive Zelanti dreadnought, attempted to break through the human perimeter. 3 human vessels moved to intercept, their weapons firing with devastating precision. The alien ship's shields collapsed. In seconds, its weapons systems disabled, its engines destroyed. It drifted helpless in space, completely neutralized.